Kato, a young man in his 20s, is sprinting desperately away from the creature chasing him. He dodges as the beast tries to charge at him, and it hits the wall instead, breaking huge chunks of it. He watches as the beast tries to remove its head from the wall and chases him again. It is explained that a vortex to the underworld appeared 10 years ago in the middle of Tokyo. Multiple types of beasts appeared out of this vortex, and they all carried an unknown virus. They became known as carriers, and they indiscriminately attacked humans, including those who died from the sickness. The death toll was beyond 1 million. Since then, smaller vortexes have appeared across Japan with carriers coming out from them. Those who had no power, like Kaido, had no choice but to run. As he runs for his life now, he remembers how running was all he did since his parents died, and his little sister became infected. The man is about to pass by a group of other men who find his misfortune a form of entertainment. Unfortunately, he is not respected among his peers because he is a low rank among the purifiers. Among the men is a person who has an axe, and he is powering up with some form of golden light energy. The man is known to have awakened special powers after receiving vaccination from refined carriers. He then throws his power-imbued axe, which almost hit Kato. Luckily, it fatally hit the carrier, causing the man named Godai, a rank 3 purifier, to celebrate. He approaches the carrier's head to pick up something sparkling inside it. The men are so busy looking at the red stone they got from the carrier that they pay no attention to the exhausted Kato catching his breath behind them. Just then, a young woman named Mizuno arrives and reports to God that all the carriers in the area have been eliminated and that the tunnel's disappearance has been confirmed. Now that everything is over, Dodai tells his team that they can pack up. He makes sure that Kaido hears how the mission became so easy since they used him as bait. It makes a young man feel like a worthless human being. Later on, Kaido is in the waiting area of a hospital, where he checks his phone to see that he barely has any money left in his account. Mizuno sits right next to him and reports that the test revealed that none of them got infected. Kaido tells her that he finds the obligatory post-mission testing bothersome, so the girl shouts at him that he should take his condition seriously. Kaido ponders about his condition known as specific immune deficiency, which means that he has no immunity to the virus that the carriers bring, making him vulnerable to death with even just scratch from the beasts. Despite no one on Earth aside from him having this condition, he tells himself that he is grateful for having it since it also makes him attractive to carriers, and so makes him the perfect bait. Mizuno is saddened at how he takes his misfortune in stride. The young man tells her that he is fine. He tries to convince himself that his condition is a gift that laid the path for him to become a purifier. He apologizes for making Mizuno worried, but the girl holds his hand and tells him that he should be acknowledged and appreciated despite his condition. She then promises that she will protect him until that day comes. It suddenly dawns on her what she just did, and she becomes embarrassed. She makes an excuse to buy some drinks and runs away from him to leave. Kaido feels ashamed that he is so pathetic that a young girl even swore to protect him. Just as he comments that his little sister, Mio, should not see him like this, he sees that she is already beside him with judging eyes. Mio tells him that she never thought her brother would get along so well with a woman. The guy says that Mizuno is just a colleague, but his sister thinks he is lying. Kaido changes the subject and asks if she should be walking around. He tells her that he eliminated any carriers for her today. The little girl smiles with pride for her brother, only to suddenly cough multiple times. She tells him that she is okay and is more focused on praising her brother for being a hero. Her words sadden Kaido since they make him feel like a fraud. The young man embraces his sister and swears that they will find a cure for her sickness one day. Mayo tears up and tells her brother not to push himself. The siblings wave each other goodbye as a nurse escorts Mayo back to her room. Just then, Kaido hears a beep from the watch he is wearing. He checks the watch and sees that there is an alert for an interdimensional tunnel appearing soon. A portal appears just outside the hospital where there are so many innocent people gathered. Godai complains that they need to do it all over again, but he is glad that the portal at least appeared near his squad. The head of a wolf carrier exits from the portal. The squad immediately notices that there's something different about this carrier from the fight before. As more of these wolf creatures exit, it becomes apparent that these versions can stand upright. The squad gets into battle formation as the carriers charge toward them. Godai swings his axe at one, hitting it right in the face. The hit is so powerful that the carrier gets sent flying. The team celebrates, but the captain's confidence slips as he sees that his axe got chipped after the attack. One of the squad members gets so distracted that he gets pinned down and bitten by one who was sent flying before. He cries for help, but the crew members remain stunned. The monster ends up ending his life in an instant in front of the team, and the squad panics since they never experienced this kind of situation before. Hodai wonders why his attacks are not working. He then realized from how his axe got chipped that his immunity against them was gone. They panic, realizing they are powerless against these carriers. Suddenly, the man who just got killed reawakens. The squad stares at the man in terror as he stands up in an unusual way and looks back at them. The man now acts like a mad animal that charges towards them. Godai gets scared and hits the now zombified man with an axe, making the zombie get sent flying. The squad is utterly confused by what is happening. He reviews that carriers usually eat people alive or infect them until they turn to ash in the end. However, the carriers in front of them kill the people and turn them into zombies. Godai and the squad get so scared that they turn around and run towards the hospital. They enter the hospital, so Kaido asks them if it is already over. Godai lets out an evil smile after hearing his voice. He tells the young man that it is time to do his role of being their bait. Just as Kaido tries to understand what he is talking about, countless zombies and carriers break through the glass entrance of the hospital behind him. Before he has the chance to even turn around, people in the hospital already start dying. He gets startled to see humans attacking other humans. He gets so distracted by the scene that Godai uses the opportunity to push him towards the beasts. The squad runs away while leaving behind Kaido and the other scrabbling people. Kaido realizes that the monsters will eventually reach Mio's room. Desperate to save his sister, he shouts at the zombies and carriers to get their attention to follow him. Effective, they run towards him, and so he quickly escaped from them. He is so good at running that he slides under the blocking couches with precision. He then grabs a clutch on the way and throws it at them. One of the zombies trips on it, causing a chain reaction where they all trip. Meanwhile, a shadowy figure from the other side of a vortex is watching Kaido. This mystery person licks their lips just looking at him. Back in the hospital, Kaido sees that a woman and her child are about to be attacked by a zombie. He dashes towards the creature, stopping it from harming its targets. He shouts at the woman to run, and so she does while carrying her child. He watches with relief as the woman gets away. He gets so distracted that he does not notice when the zombies catch up to him and start eating his left arm. He then gets pinned to the ground as more of them crowd up on him and starts feasting. Kaido sees his sad times flash before his eyes, the death of his parents, his unfortunate life as a purifier. And amidst these, the one good memory he remembers is when he and Mio were happy together holding each other's hands. He gets determined to grab life and find a way to treat his little sister's illness no matter what. To his surprise, his watch suddenly beeps, and a portal then opens right in front of him. He looks at the alert on his watch and sees that the contamination level is over 10,290, shocking him. Just then, a shadowy figure of a person comes out of the vortex. The person is holding a death sight which radiates ominous energy. The figure then swings their sight and Kaido braces for impact, closing his eyes. He opens them and realizes that he is unharmed and that all the zombies have been cut down. After a few seconds, the bodies turn to dust and scatter away. The mysterious savior tells Kaido that they have been waiting for a feast like him all their life and that it would be such a waste to let him die so easily. This savior is revealed to be a woman, and she invites him to be her host. Kaido is so focused on the woman that he does not notice the zombies and carriers nearing him from behind. The woman makes a flick of a finger, and then Kaido hears disturbing sounds behind him. He looks back to see that the zombies and carriers have been staked and hanged by red spiky protrusions that grew from the ground. The woman calls the monsters pathetic losers for trying to steal her prey. She judges them with a death penalty. With her command, the protrusions get even spikier, so they stab even more holes in the monsters' bodies. She raises her hand, and the spikes grow longer, shocking Kaido. She then lowers her hand, making them explode. The monsters lie on the ground with scattered pieces of the spikes surrounding them. Kaido looks around to see that they are now deformed and lifeless. He looks at the girl, unable to believe how powerful she is. She wants to talk with Kaido, sees that their location is not ideal for it. A red energy picks up the young man. While he levitates, so does the woman. He stares at her with suspicion and fear. He gets shocked as the woman gets behind him in a second and licks the open wound on his cheek. She tells him that they need to go somewhere they can be alone so she can properly infect him. He gets both scared and confused by what she means. In an instant, he gets transported to the rooftop. The wounds on his face and arms slowly heal themselves. He notices that all of his wounds have disappeared. The face of the mysterious girl appears to tell him that she has completed infecting him. She also introduces herself as Tia. Kaido worries that this means he is going to die. So Tia tells him that she won't let him off so easily. When asked if she is a carrier, she explains to him that she was the one who neutralized the carrier's omnification process on him. She elaborates that she is known as a higher-level virus, while the mindless beasts are known as lower-level viruses. Kaido is intrigued by her power and pleads for her to also heal his sister. He tells her that she got infected 5 years earlier and has been hospitalized ever since. Tia asks for his name, so he tells her. However, she reveals that she can't grant his wish. She explains that she only managed to heal him because she has taken root in his body. In response, the man pleads for her to take her sister instead. Tia suddenly appears behind him with an embrace to tell him that she will never do that. She tells him that she has no intention of ever leaving his body and that he will die anyway if ever that happens. He asks what she wants from him. The demonic woman licks her lips as she tells him that she will consume him little by little, ever so slowly until the day he dies. She convinces him that this is good news since this means she won't affect his daily life, comparing Kaido to a livestock. Meanwhile, Godi is somewhere in the hospital and is furious with the person he is talking to on the phone because he has been demoted. The other SWAT members overhear the conversation and they talk about how they are being blamed for the carriers ending up killing many people in the hospital. They also wonder how the carriers suddenly disappeared without a trace. Furious, Godi goes to them and looks for Kaido. They tell their captain they can't find the man as well. Godi tells them that he blames Kaido for attracting the carriers to the hospital. His scary mood forces the squad to agree with his assessment without question. With scary eyes, the captain swears that he will kill Kaido. Just then, he notices Mio walking around, and he smiles with a mischievous idea. Meanwhile, Kaido is on the search for Mio to confirm her safety. Tia can tell that something is bothering him since his body is trembling. He explains that his parents have been killed by carriers and hates the fact that he now needs to coexist with one. Tai replies that it is unfair to hold a grudge against her because she was not the carrier who did it. Triggered, Kaido shouts out that she is still a carrier. The girl smiles, stating that she will make it worth his while. She calls the zombies the feed and makes him remember that he was bitten by one. She explains that once a person becomes a feed, the virus inside them will enhance their physical abilities and turn them into monsters that will crave for humans. She whispers that he is special since he gained all the physical advantages of the feed without their mindlessness. Suddenly, Kaido's right hand grows into a monstrous form with sharp claws, shocking him. Unable to control it, he hits the wall beside him and destroys it. Tia explains that the more their connection deepens, the more he will become powerful. With devilish look, she states that he now has the power he desperate wants, and that is to kill carriers. Tia realizes someone is coming, so she returns his hand to normal size, albeit it still looks monstrous. His squad mates show up, so Kaido acts casual and hides his hand behind him. The 3 squad mates tell him that they came to say goodbye to him. They take on a mischievous smile as they tell him that they can no longer cover for him for being responsible for the hospital's destruction. He shouts at them for trying to pin the blame on him. They retort that since his role was always to be bait, they are simply putting him to good use. Kaido replies that he will never agree with this. They tell him that they have no choice but to use his sister if he won't comply, making Kaido angry. They laugh as they continue to say that his sister is with God right now and is probably crying. Kaido tries to walk past them and tells them to step aside. As one man tells him off for being so arrogant, he punches him right in the face. He hits him so hard that he flies and slashes to the wall. As the unconscious man falls, he shows that the wall behind him looks so damaged, and he plops on the floor in an awkward position. The others start to tremble in fear of Kaido, who grips his monstrous fist in front of them, demanding that they move out of his way. Kaido looks like a monster in the eyes of the squad members. Just as one of them tries to talk, he punches him in the face. Unlike before, he makes sure that his punch connects until they hit the wall. The last one grabs Kaido from behind and puts him in arm lock. Kaido grabs his head and then slams him to the floor with full force. He then runs towards Neo's room and slams the door open, but sees that there is no one there. Just then, his phone rings and he sees that it is Mizuno calling. The moment he answers, the girl tells him that Goad has kidnapped his sister. She reports that Goad is at the parking lot and also tells him to call the police. Meanwhile, in the parking lot, Goad is carrying Mayo's unconscious body while Neo tries to stop him. The girl tells him that what he is doing is kidnapping. Hodai does not care and hits her with impressive force. Seeing her dispose, he continues to walk. He then puts Mayo in the back seat of his car. As he takes his seat, he reviews his plan of leading Kaido to the association headquarters. He rejoiced at the thought of making Kaido take responsibility for his failure. Suddenly, Kaido jumps off from a few stories high. Godai sees that he is falling from above his car and is taken aback when Kaido grabs him by the throat. He then throws him a few meters away from his car. Meanwhile, Tia smiles at seeing him so strong because of her power and is so proud of herself. Kaido destroys more of the car to check on Mio. Seeing her safe, he looks for Mizuno and sees her unconscious on the ground. Suddenly, Godai becomes rabid and his face transforms. Tia informs Kaido that he has been infected and is on the verge of being a feed. It is then revealed that he is bitten and all he wants is to end Kaido. He then attacks, but Kaido dodges repeatedly, making him more frustrated and impulsive. Kaido tries to reason with him, but he still keeps attacking. Kaido blocks his axe with his bare hand and asks Goad what he did to make him hate enough to drag his sister into it. With a menacing smile, Goad replies that hate has nothing to do with it and that dragging his sister and killing him is just a way to blow off steam. He makes fun of Kaido by telling him that when he kidnapped his sister, he made sure to let her know that her brother has a job that can get him killed at any time, all for the sake of covering her medical costs. He witnessed the horror on her face as he told her that it was all her fault. Kaido gets so angered that his grip cracks the metal of Goad's axe. The captain kicks him, but Kaido remains unmoved from his spot. He swings his axe again, intending to end Kaido. He then realizes that the blade portion of his axe is gone from the handle and it falls to the ground. Kaido's eyes look like a demon's as he stares at Godai, and he punches the man in the stomach with full power, sending him back. Not letting him recover, Kaido immediately kicks him in the face. The force is so strong that Goad is sent spinning like a top while in the air. Impressed, Tia comments that the attack must be so painful. Goad now looks lifeless, so Kaido walks away. However, the infected captain suddenly screams. Slowly, his body grows bigger and more deformed, shocking Kaido. The infected continues to scream while looking monstrous in a new, gigantic, and red body. Fully transformed, he punches Kaido, who quickly blocks it but still got sent backward with a force. Tia informs him that Godai has completed his transformation into a feed and asks him if he will end someone who was once human like him. The monster nears his car and widens its mouth as it approaches the sleeping Neo. To Tia's surprise, Kaido stretches out his right arm. He throws away his glasses and slicks back his hair. With a different aura, he starts gathering a dangerous amount of energy, alerting the monster. Out of the energy, he forms the death scythe that Tia was using before, pleasing the carrier woman. Kaido grips the sight tightly, and he answers Tia that he does not care since he will hunt down anyone to protect his sister, and prepares for the battle with the stealth. The monster formerly known as Godai charges towards Kaido in a mindless rage. Tia wants to see how her host will handle the situation while Kaido anticipates the monster strike. As the monster nears, Kaido spins his scythe, leading its blade to cut its punching arm off. The dismembered hand turns to dust and disappears into the air. The monster lets out a differing roar and makes its second strike. Kaido dodges it and keeps dodging its relentless assaults. Tia reminds him that feeders do not feel pain and so will never stop attacking until they die. Kaido's response is to go on the offensive. He thrusts the end of his scythe into the monster's chin. The young man remembers all the abuse Godai put on him. It gives him the motivation to continue hurting the monster. He sarcastically thanks the former captain for taking care of him, and then proceeds to cut its body up into little pieces. Every piece slowly turns into dust and disappears into the air. Later, Mayo opens her eyes and sees that she is back in her hospital bed with his brother worried about her. The girl says that she feels fine, but does not remember anything after she blacked out. When asked if he saved her, Kaido tells her that Mizuno was the one who told him where to find her. His brother mentioned the woman feels off for the little sister, and she asks if she was the woman she saw before. She realizes that she has to thank Mizuno the next time she sees her. She then gets saddened as she thinks about how Goad made her feel like a burden to her brother. Kaido assures her that his former captain got infected by a new type of carrier, so he was delirious when he came into her room. He tells her with a smile not to worry about it. The girl asks if this means he is not intentionally putting himself in danger because of her shocking Kaido. Mio cries as she tells him that she would never forgive herself if he got hurt. With a cheery smile, Kaido tells her that her brother is stronger than she thinks, assuring her that everything is all right. Mio looks at him as if her brother has become a different, more Kaido. Just then, he looks outside the window to see that police officers are scattered in the parking lot crime scene. He mourns Mio that things might get chaotic for a while because of all commotion. She pats her sister's head while saying he needs to return home. With a smile, Mio bids him goodbye. Later, Kaido returns to his bedroom in his house. Tia appears as he sits down. Kaido asks that they begin talking about their situation, but gets distracted as he sees that Tia is looking at his collection of men's magazines. She then changes her form to look more like the mature women in the magazines. She explains that high-level viruses can alter their form and proceeds to flipping through the magazine and notes that her host is very interested in mature content, making Kaido flustered. She sits down on his bed and asks that he continue what he was trying. The man composes himself and asks if he can use Tia's power because he is her host. The carrier confirms his query and explains that he has become more powerful than the average feeder because she has added on her own powers and abilities. He asks if this means he can take down carriers despite not having the abilities other purifiers have. Tia explains that when two viruses clash, the stronger one wins. Kaido becomes happy hearing this. Tia just has to ruin his mood by saying he is still so weak and does not have what it takes to draw out her full power. She elaborates that he has only tasted a glimpse of her power and that he will only get stronger as their connection deepens. She also tells him that his lifespan will shorten in the process, making the young man imagine Mio being sad because of his death. Tia tells him that he won't push him. After all, her goal is to stay with him as long as possible. Kaido tells her that they need to keep this a secret from the association. He fears what they would do if they found out he is coexisting with a carrier. He fears the interference of the high-ranking purifiers the most. Tia can't see how she can lose to any humans, but agrees to it for his safety. Leaning dangerously close to him, she asks with a seductive stare if his real reason is because he wants her all to himself. The guy gets flustered, making the carrier suspicious that she is right on the money. Meanwhile, a small flying drone with a camera is just outside the window. Later, an explosion signals the appearance of a new vortex in the middle of a city. A gigantic reptilian carrier exits from it. Purifiers with shields try to barricade it, but it is all that they can do. Meanwhile, a freighter plane is above the sky. This back door opens up for a man about to dive. After a countdown, the man with a huge sword dies and falls. Meanwhile, the carrier is overpowering every purifier trying to stop it. The army of defenders can tell that they are hanging by a thread and shouts the name of Taino to get in the battle as fast as he can. The man falling from the sky looks like a sparkling star above the reptile carrier. His sword is filled with awesome energy while he drops towards the monster. He lands like a meteor on the monster. Impact sends the wind flying towards the other purifiers. The man is revealed out of the smoke and he comments about how he has just added another legend to his unstoppable greatness. The man waves back as the purifiers cheer for him. Suddenly, Tano's watch beeps. He anticipates that it is another mission. The watch informs him of the new type of carriers that appeared recently and how Kaido is somehow in the middle of it all. Tano deems this new mission as something worthy of his greatness. He smiles at the thought that he is about to be in the middle of something interesting. Kaido looks into his bank account on his phone and sees that he is almost out of money. He is so depressed by this that he goes to his knees and screams out that he is broke. He hopes that he gets assigned to a new post so he can earn a living. Tia asks why he is still relying on the association when he can take down carriers on his own now. Kaido tells her that while he can get valuable miasma stones from carriers on his own, they are too valuable for the world not to end up at the association. He explains that they need them to be able to fund purifiers and maintain peace. He adds that he does not feel right skimming off the top. He elaborates that miasma stones are known as the heart of a carrier and have the ability to control the virus and can be used as medicine for Mayo. He swears not to be the one to disrupt the research on the infected. Tia reminds him that he can barely afford food right now, so he might not have a choice but to do so. The man's phone tells him that he has an email from the association. He sees that it is time for the routine ability assessment. Later, Kaido goes to the association training grounds. He then gets a message through his phone that Mizuno will not be participating because of her injury from the parking lot incident. Tia asks what kind of event they are in, and he explains that it is an annual ability assessment held in each district and that the goal is to simulate real combat scenarios to test how a purifier can adapt to different situations. Through this, one's rank is determined based on the results of the test. He explains the ranking system of the purifiers, where those who are in first level are considered the best, while those in fifth are considered weak. After learning that he is ranked 6th, Tia teases him for being worthless enough to not even be considered 5th. Kaido notices people talking and laughing about him for being his 6th rank, who does not even have any special immunity. He grinds his teeth as they make fun of him for being only useful as bait in missions. She suggests they kill them, but Kaido immediately disagrees. He stays humble and tells her that he needs to hold back during the assessment so he does not stand out. Later, the instructor tells everyone to wear a weighted vest for the obstacle course. Kaido is minding his business by trying on the weighted vest when one of the guys makes fun of him. He makes fun of Kaido for not releasing energy to enhance his physical attributes like the rest of them. The man sarcastically tells him that he feels bad that he can't access the energy due to his lack of special immunity. The bully makes sure to show Kaido his glowing body of energy. Kaido is trying to get ready for the race, yet the man wants to bother him more by bringing up that he has an infected sister. Kaido is barely containing his anger at this point, yet the man still continues the cause by saying his sister would be better off dead to not be a burden. How this means she would not suffer while also releasing herself as a burden to the family. The instructor announces they get ready to run. The bully tells him that he will be waiting at the finish line for him. The moment the instructor presses the signal, Kaido runs past everyone else, shocking them. He ends up on a vertical road that is built like a towering platform, and he jumps above it. Everyone, including the bully, has their jaws on the floor. As Kaido dives down, Tia asks him why he is not holding back like he said. With eyes that show Kaido was boiling in anger, he tells her that his new plan is to leave everyone in the dust. Meanwhile, Taina was on top of a hill near the training grounds and is observing the race carefully. Kaido continues to overcome every obstacle thrown at him. He goes through the forest portion where the onlookers predict that he needs to slow down the pond as the foothold floating on the water are 3 meters apart. However, Kaido's jump range is so long that he bypasses the foothold and reaches the other side of the pond, much to the shock of the onlookers. Many watching have started to root for him. He crosses the finish line and they cheer. As he tries to get his weighted vest off, the bully accuses him of cheating with fake weights. As a retaliation, Kaido throws the weights towards him, making him fall to the ground and gasp for air. Kaido moves on to the hammer strength test portion and hits the target with so much force it breaks the ground. The ball flies past the highest peak of the pole and into the sky. He then moves on to the target practice field where any type of throwable weapon can be used to hit a target from a distance. The targets are shown to be scattered mock carriers and innocent bystanders. Kaido throws a ball towards a target. It hits the pierces through the mock carrier. People are impressed. A lot about him has changed. However, the ball does not stop its acceleration and hits the distant metal pole of a scoreboard, making the structure fall and everyone in shock. The structure explodes on impact with the ground, making Tia impressed. Those who made fun of Kaido before are now trembling on the ground, calling him a monster. Just then, Tia senses danger and warns Kaido about it. Suddenly, something is speeding down like a meteor in the sky and is revealed to be a sword that Kaido manages to grab before the tip hits him. A mystery person steps on the standing sword. Kaido recognizes him as an Imperial First-Class Purifier. As if on cue, everybody cheers to see the famous Taino challenge the new star. The man speaks Kaido's name, alerting the young man that he knows who he is. Taino tells him that he has caught his interest and he challenges Kaido to a duel. Taino descended to the ground and calmly took his blade from Kaido's hands. He says the young purifier must have an idea of who he is. There's no way people wouldn't know as he's one of only 7 first-class purifiers. They boast extraordinary immunity and said to cut mountains with a single strike. The one before him is the record holder for large carrier hunts, the human warhead, and the man known to be loved by the gods. Full of self-love, Taino Flashley says that he'll evaluate the young man himself. While it's an honor, it's also a ridiculous and impossible task to fight such a high-class warrior. Dragging his great sword into the ground, he pulled a smaller knife from the handle, saying he has no intention of going all out on a mere 6th-class purifier. While he's undoubtedly strong, the onlookers can't believe that he plans to fight that way. Looking at the tiny dagger, Tia can't help but feel like she's being underestimated. That said, if he didn't do that, then the fight wouldn't be fair in the slightest. Just facing the top ranker was a daunting task, as his overwhelming presence would be enough to make most fall to their knees. The pressure was palpable, and all of Kato's instincts were screaming in mourning. Smiling menacingly, Tano asked that he was going to fight without a weapon. While he doesn't normally fight armed, he takes a sword from the table, knowing he'll be taken down if he refuses to fight back. With both of them ready, the prodigy is engulfed in lightning and energy. He makes the first move, maneuvering and swiftly thrusting his blade at the opponent. Realizing the danger they were in, the other examinees ran for their lives. Kaito tried to follow suit, running sideways to avoid the purifier. However, he quickly caught up, complaining that he wasn't there to play tag. They clash once more, and the connection is enough to break the steel sword. He reacted as fast as he could and quickly retrieved a replacement, now facing the opponent down. Tano grinned in delight, acknowledging his reaction's speed and sharp eyes. He unleashes a barrage of strikes, saying it isn't much of a fight if he keeps running away. Even Kato agrees that it's one-sided and questions the point of such a battle. However, as he said earlier, he piqued the top ranker's interest. Talking with words won't satisfy him, who believes that true understanding can only be reached by crossing swords with someone. It's a completely ridiculous belief, and any sane person would agree. Although the 6th ranker tries to retaliate, his blade is easily caught between the superior's fingers. He's stunned by the gap between them, more so when Tainov snaps the blade in two, telling him to take their battle seriously. Kaito jumps back, gaining some distance to think. The man he's up against cannot even be compared to Godai, even when he was a carrier. Trying to think of things to do, he grabs a huge object nearby. Gritting his teeth, he uses all this power to carry and swing. The floodlights he broke just earlier. Taino stared in slight astonishment, not expecting such an enormous item to crash down at him. The carrier pants, exhausted after exerting his energy. However, Igantia can't help but acknowledge the human's power as he stops the floodlights with one hand. He expected first-class purifiers to be strong, but this was just too much to handle. The difference in power was incomparable, and his sheer aura was suffocating. Tossing the heavy lights aside, Taino asks just how long he's going to hold back. Kaito starts to sweat and claims to not know what he's talking about. As the dust from the fight swept over, the purifier disappeared. In an instant, he appears by his ear and says he was much stronger when he defeated Godai. He turns around by instinct but finds a foot planted hard onto his back. The young man crashes face first to the ground. Since he's refusing to be honest, the top ranker has no choice but to report him to the association. Finally, Kaito admits that he can't reveal anything, but adds that he has his own reasons, cutting him some slack. Taino asks him to just explain why he became a purifier in the first place. The simple answer is that he needs to somehow cure his infected sister. In other words, he's after the miasma stone, which would be a fairly reasonable motive. As long as it's for Mayo, the young man is willing to put his life on the line every day. After a moment of ominous silence, Tano suddenly threw the dagger at him, barely cutting through Kato's cheek. He says he sympathizes with the poor brother. However, as a first-class purifier, he has responsibilities to uphold. Seeing him pick the great sword up, the young man questions what he can do at that range. Suddenly, Tia intervened for the first time, urgently telling him to run away. Taino swung with a devilish glare, and the slash of energy carved the ground itself, consuming everything in its path. Kato's body dodged instinctively after hearing his carrier's warning. From the sky, he sees the insane destruction caused by one swing. With hidden strength and a willingness to risk their lives for a goal, such people are the ones most susceptible to falling into darkness. Unable to let that happen, Tano charged in again, prepared to delete the threat right there. He struck, asking that the enemy not take it personally. Upon clashing, the purifier found his blade completely stopped, blocked by something firm. The sensor on his wrist beeped and flashed rapidly. Finally, he's ready to show his true strength. A red plume blew in the air as Kaito appeared in his infected form, defending with the demonic scythe. In a dimly lit surveillance room, footage of Kaito's fight against Godai was played. Seeing the human's odd appearance, Tano confirms that no one else has watched the recording. Since it'll cause chaos, should it reach the public, he personally takes it into custody for now. The guard is told that any and all information leaks are prohibited. Before leaving, he looked at the footage again, staring at the young man's demonic glare. Now clashing, it's just as he expected, and the power is far beyond the common special immunity. Since he can't fully comprehend it, he tells Kaido to explain why the contamination factor was being detected from him. They continued to pressure each other in silence. Tino sighed in resignation. Disappointed by the quiet, he sends the young man back, trying to simplify the question. He outright asks if he's a carrier. It's quickly denied, so he's then asked if he's somehow connected to one. Caught red-handed, he falls mute once more, but silence is more than enough of a confession. Now determined and with more of a reason, Tano increases the power he's using and mercilessly strikes with his blade. The glint in his eyes changed, and Kato was barely able to keep up with the help of Tia's power. He blocks for now, but the Purifier's movements were fiercer and faster than when he was using a dagger. Meanwhile, the onlookers rushed away confused, too scared to even come close. Tano smiled as his target backed away, impressed by the moves he's seeing. However, he adds that he's wasting all that power. Meanwhile, Kaido had no time to worry about that since he was gradually being cornered. As if reading his mind, the top ranker menacingly says that he must not be thinking about running from him. The reality of the situation set in, and all he could do was call to the Purifier and try to plead that he isn't their enemy. However, if he's claiming to be an ally of the association, then he should have no reason to hide it. His eyes solemnly turned to the ground. If they were to find out about his carrier powers, he would be executed on the spot. Unfortunately, if anything were to happen to him, then his sister will surely die. Because of this, he can't let anyone get in his way, even if it's the association. Understanding, Tano fell still and clicked his blade again. He charged in, reaching the enemy in an instant. He's moving even faster now that he better understands the type of person he's up against. As Kato trembled on the ground, the Purifier shared his theory. If humans can surpass their limits, it's always when they have to protect someone they care about, exactly as he did for his sister. Moreover, he believes that those who can do that are people worthy of his trust. Tano raised his blade, saying he'll test the young man's worth with his next strike. If he doesn't want to lose his sister's future, he should fight back with all the power inside his body. Seeing him boosted up by his weapon, even Tia is interested by the blade that allows him to fly without wings. Suddenly, Kaido called to her seriously and told the carrier to eat him. However, this will have lethal repercussions, which she confirms he's aware of. His lifespan will shorten, but it's better than dying and leaving Mayo on the spot. Smiling at his decision and determination, she latched on to him, saying she had to grant the wishes of her host. With this, she bites his neck, and he immediately feels the infection flow throughout his body. Grimacing, he held it all in. On the other hand, Tino dove in from the sky, ready to swing his blade. His sensor went crazy, and the detection value started to increase rapidly, like a meteor crashing onto the earth. The blue energy shot down. Tia completes her meal just in time and retreats as her host contamination level hits 1,000. He was brimming with demonic power, but the number just kept on rising. Giving it his all as ordered, he swung his enormous scythe, clashing with the blue meteor head-on. The two purifiers clashed, pushing each other back with their power. He showed great resolve and strength, but Kaido started sinking into the ground. On the other hand, Tano smirks, unable to deny that it was a close call. The sight breaks into pieces as the top ranker overwhelms with his power. He walked forward through the dust and smoke, looking down at the enemy who glared with desperate eyes. A small but razor-sharp blade appeared in Kato's hand. The opponent raised his great sword, but he moved faster, taking him by surprise. The little blade grew, turning into something like a sickle as it rapidly moved towards the target's head. However, Tino once again proves the gap between them as he reacts fast enough to summon a shield and block the surprise attack. Surprisingly, the shield breaks and the young man, consumed by his purpose, immediately strikes once more. Saying it was enough, Tino easily stops the attack. Before Kaido could react, he plants a punch into his gut and knocks the transformation out of the young man. Carrying his entire body, he tells him to be proud as he's a man worthy of trust. Kaido grimaced as he regained consciousness and a familiar voice called before he was even fully awake. Tano was seated before him, watching and saying that there was no need to be so wary. If he planned to get rid of him, he would have done it ages ago, but he wasn't even restrained. That said, an attempt to escape would be useless as they were currently in a helicopter, which was traveling over the sea. They're headed to Tokyo, the headquarters of the Special Purification Association. Kaido falls into a panic, shouting that he really must intend to kill him. Handing him over is basically the same, but Tino argues he never said anything about handing him over. The association has summoned him, and that's all there is to it. After all, he caused so much destruction during the ability assessment test, granted that half of it was because of the top ranker. Moreover, he wants Kaido to explain the incident at the hospital from his personal perspective. If there's anything he can't say at the headquarters, he can tell him in confidence right there. As such, he tells his story as requested. Tino understands that Tia, who was captured by the camera, is a carrier and that enhanced physical abilities must be the side effects of becoming her host. Even he still doesn't understand everything, so she reasons that she isn't hiding information on purpose, but just sees no need to share it yet. Tino asks if she can show herself to him, but the carrier flatly refuses. She feels like they wouldn't get along and adds that she isn't a fan of his arrogant attitude. While Kaido would argue that they're similar, he plays her refusal down, saying she's likely too embarrassed to meet someone so handsome. This surprisingly works, and the smug purifier says such a thing cannot be helped. Regardless of the situation, going straight to headquarters is a nerve-wracking trip. Kaido tells him to calm down, promising that he has a plan. Soon enough, the helicopter lands and the two enter the building. Kaido is given one last warning against revealing the truth about coexisting with a carrier. After all, a certain man's obsession with such matters is enough to make even him shudder. Arriving, he knocks at the door and they're told to enter. Tino starts by identifying himself, saying he's there to report on the investigation of the new carrier that appeared in the Saitama prefecture. The conference room was full of people, and at the head of the table sat Chairman Kazuki, whose presence was far more overwhelming in person than it was on television. The rugged-looking leader praised Tino for a job well done and asked to hear his report right away. Saying he confronted the carrier, he adds that he was accompanied by Kaido and hands the floor to him. Loudly identifying himself, Kaido greets them all. However, the chairman notes that he's in 6th class, and the others laugh at how he has specific immune deficiency. Ignoring them, he goes on about the features of the new carrier, which turns the feed into aggressive berserkers who then cause secondary infections. This isn't just something he gathered firsthand, but actually came from Tia directly. As for the resolution, he says an oxygen tank coincidentally exploded and took everyone out in one go. The old men start to panic about the carriers that cancel out special immunity. More importantly, the fact that infected people can also infect others is crucial information. They believe that Kaido's unique trait lured the carriers into one spot, allowing them to be wiped out at once. They commend him for doing well, as it's a miracle that he's even alive. However, the chairman is fully convinced that there's something he isn't telling them. Kazuki's aura pressures everyone in the room, and they can barely keep their heads up. Kaido does his best to push through and stick to the plan without hesitation. He avoids their eyes, and as he rehearsed, admits that he was wounded by a carrier in battle. The men inside move back, knowing he doesn't have immunity and can hurt them. The young man then claims that he oddly never developed any symptoms. Not having the words to explain any further, he looks to his partner for support. Tano then chimed in, saying he had something to show them. He clicks on his watch and presents the ability test results. While the others gasped in shock and skepticism, the top ranker guarantees that there was no foul play. Kaido's results show a drastic and overwhelming improvement in physical activity. As such, his theory is that the exposure to the new virus manifested something different from special immunity. If this is true, then it means there's a brand new chance for humanity. In an instant, newfound hope filled the room, just as Tano had earlier planned. If they wanted to deceive someone, mixing a bit of truth into the lie works the best. By doing what they did, they were able to raise the value of his existence and have made him indispensable. He understood, but this was just the first phase of their plan. Moreover, he doesn't understand why the top ranker was helping him as with a steely gaze, Tino stood and told him not to get the wrong idea. He ripped the association's emblem off his shoulder, saying the only thing he allies with is justice itself. What's more, he decides for himself what he believes is just and fair. Hearing this, Kaido remembered his sister, who proudly called him a hero of justice. He's told to also do what he thinks is right. As long as their values and ideas of righteousness don't clash, he's willing to lend a hand. The young man bowed in gratitude. He's told that it was far too early to thank him, but he had already fallen into a fit of tears. Back in the conference room, Taino shares that unlike those with special immunity, Peito is able to fully accept the virus and turn it into his own power. Depending on how they view it, he can be a valuable subject capable of befriending carriers. However, a woman stands upon hearing this statement, unwilling to let it slide. Another first-class purifier, Rina, stared them down with intense eyes. Her glare sent shivers down the young man's spine, and he found her even scarier than the chairman. She walked toward them, saying it's as if they're advocating for care. The old men's heads went down as she reminded them of the damage those monsters caused. To her, it's disgusting to even imagine the humor, the idea of coexisting with such creatures. Putting her foot down, she faces Taino and demands that Kaido be executed immediately. They argue, with one identifying the young man as a victim and the other not caring regardless. Their voices get higher with each rebuttal, prompting Kazuki to silence them both, saying first-class officers shouldn't be fighting. Not wanting things to escalate either, Taino says he has a proposal. He acknowledges Rina's concerns as the lack of precedent gives them no guarantee that Kato won't lose control. So until they can confirm his docile nature, he volunteers to take custody of the infected. After a moment of thought, Kazuki can't deny that it sounds like a good idea, and the others are reassured with the first-class purifier on watch. His persuasion skills are incredible as he used his peer's argument to steer situation in his favor. They're about to approve the decision when Rina objects once more, insisting that the two seem to have a close relationship. That said, she doubts that he can make an objective decision should a crisis come to pass. Asked for an alternative option, she then volunteers to monitor the infected herself. After the meeting, Tannen apologizes, saying he didn't expect things to end this way. More than that, Kaido asks to hear more about Rina as he hasn't even seen her in the news. To put it simply, she's been dubbed the carrier killer, more monstrous than the infected themselves. He walked with his new supervisor. Her squad operates exclusively in Tokyo, and he'll be working with them for a few days. In other words, he needs to stay in contact at all times. To his surprise, she suddenly apologizes for being thoughtless. She has no personal resentment against him and overreacted to Tano's words earlier. Relief washes over him. As long as he doesn't try to establish friendly relations with carriers, she'll have no reason to act against. Tia chimes in, calling it a red flag. Rina leaves him frozen, saying she'll introduce him to the squad, soon as they're gathering for a mission. Thinking about her members, he imagines an excessively prim and proper group. As he wondered what kind of people they are, she opened the door, apologizing for making everyone wait. To his surprise, an odd mixture of people welcomed him. Addressing the captain, a girl named Yaji asks if she's with a newcomer. Answering her question, Rin introduced the newbie, sharing that he's a 6th-class purifier. Natsu explodes in surprise, in disbelief that there's a rank below 5th, but Sumo has actually heard of him. Saya then asks why he's there, already believing that he'll be a useless member. However, instead of Taito, Tia is offended and suggests killing the rude man. He screams no by instinct and blushes as he realizes that he shouted at the entire room. Confused, they wonder if there's something wrong with him. Rina then explains that he was supposed to go to Taino's squad, before she insisted on taking him herself. The 4 members open their eyes in astonishment. She walks away after telling them to have a proper introduction as he'll be joining the next mission. The members burst with anger, demanding to know what his relationship with her was and threatening to hurt him based on his answer. He raises his arms in surrender, claiming to not even know her too well. While Rina went on with her job, Yaji was hit with confusion over him not knowing who their captain was. She excitedly says that he's missing out on life's best moments, to which the other 3 nod in agreement. Suddenly, their indignation dissipates, and they all fall on over the top ranker. Natsu tries to tell a story about how she saved his life, but is told that he shares it too much. Saya comes next and gushes about the natural seductiveness that comes from her. Insulted by the words he's using, Sum insists that her true charm lies in her intelligence. Yagi shuts each and everyone up, calling them shallow and then taking out her phone. She's gonna show them a video of the captain speaking to a kitten with a rare cutesy voice. The screen shows her gently cooing at a kitten and baby talking with a soft tone. The men fell to tears as Yaji proudly raised her phone. However, the recording was cut as a long piece of metal suddenly shot through the device, driving it into the wall beside Kaido.
They looked back in shock and saw that Rena launched a saber at them. She was red and trembling out of embarrassment, saying she's confiscating the footage. The team hastily apologized, bowing deep as she burned with anger and frustration. Just then, an old man joined the conversation, telling them to save the fooling around for later. Tora, the squad's old vice captain, announces that they have to move out. Soon enough, they find themselves exploring the forest. The area has a level 5000 contamination level and is considered a moderate threat. Another squad has already attempted to clear it, but the carriers are being extremely cautious. Their numbers must be low if they're hiding, but this is the first time they've observed this behavior. Moreover, the tunnel emergence frequency was also increasing. Just then, Kaido introduced himself to the vice captain, saying he failed to greet him earlier. They exchange polite pleasantries, but Torres shuts the niceties down, saying he's only going to do his job and nothing more. Should he try to pry into his personal life, he won't hesitate to end the questions permanently. With this, the newbie realizes that the squad is made up of weirdos. As for their plan, hunting the carriers down isn't an option. Suddenly, a huge beast charged at Natsu, bearing its enormous body and sharp claws. This was no problem as Tsum reacted immediately, notching his crossbow and shooting right through the enemy's knee. It screamed in pain and quickly fell to the ground, defeated. However, another carrier came at them, roaring and screaming from behind. Saya is about to take care of it, but Tsuma shoots through this one as well, saying it's first come, first serve. Their bickering is cut short as the target continues to charge, acting like it doesn't have a hole in its body. It's tougher than they thought, but it isn't the only one. While their attention was turned, the beast from before got to the archer, gripping his leg tight. It crawled all the way to him. Yeji called out as an additional enemy came from above, about to crush the pin purifier. There was no escape, and they could only scream in panic, moments away from losing a comrade. Just then, someone perched on Natsu's shoulder. Using it as a platform, Kaido launched himself into the air, exactly above the beast with his hands clasped tightly together. His aura was menacing, and a demonic energy burst forth as he swung down, sending the beast crashing into each other. Everyone was in shock and awe, unable to believe the display of raw power. However, the job isn't over, and the 6th class purifier looks to his side, where he sees the enemy closing in on Seiya. Like before, there was another one diving from above after cornering your target. They stopped completely as Kaido glared at them with threatening eyes, sending chills down their bodies. Falling helpless from the killing intent, their attacks fail. Following through, he takes one of the defeated beasts and aims at the trembling carriers. He puffs his chest and throws their companion with one hand. They fail to move fast enough and are sent flying after being hit by the huge body. Finally getting their wits back, the remaining purifiers move and deal the finishing blow to end the battle. With this, they turn the fight around and take the victory. While Kaido smiled, delightfully satisfied with the outcome, the others looked at him in disbelief. His movement just then was monstrous, especially for someone who doesn't even have special immunity. They're so shocked that they even wonder if he's stronger than their captain herself. Just then, Tora cut through their thoughts, commending the young man's movement. He asks if there's anything odd with their abilities and confirms that it's working as usual. This at least means that they're against the old type of carriers, not the new ones. The others hiding in the trees are the same. They were supposed to be hard to find, and their aggressive behavior can only be caused by one thing. Tia joyfully confirms that it's happening all because of Kato's presence. Old-type carriers aren't an issue, but they can't shake the feeling that something was off. Deep inside the cave, an ominous energy brewed. The second wave of carriers charged in, and one was immediately sent flying as Kaido kicked it in the face. Watching it lose in one hit, the others are once again in awe of the newcomer's sheer strength. Him being in 6th class is unbelievable, and it's possible that he's actually stronger than the captain. Yaji squashes such thoughts, saying they're ridiculous despite almost agreeing with the thought. Just then, a group leaked at her at once, but they were all sliced into pieces in an instant. Rina cuts them all down along with her members' doubts over her strength, saying they're in the enemy territory. She leads the way forward, telling them to stay focused. They couldn't even see her movement, so the 4 rejoice, assured that their captain really is the strongest. Soon enough, the 20th enemy falls, and while they hope that it's the last, the numbers just don't add up. All the ones they took down had contamination levels around 100, but the area is supposed to be around 5,000. In other words, there should still be about 3,000 left. Kaido asks CF for her opinion, and she assures him that the carriers are there. However, instead of multiple enemies, there's just one final strong one hiding in the dark. He recalls his time with Godai and them talking about the highest recorded level, which was 1,800. The dangerous realization hits him, and his carrier makes things worse, saying the enemy wasn't exactly hiding, as she mentioned. Suddenly, the ground beneath Yaji cracked and crumbled. The ominous energy burst forth, and Kato just barely made it in time to whisk her away to safety. A flytrap light being emerged from the ground, towering over the purifiers. It has been there from the very beginning. Several others shot out, with one in particular targeting Suma, taking the young man's body into its mouth. Before they could even react to what was happening, its jaws closed up and swallowed the unsuspecting purifier whole. Tia cackled lightly, joking that it must be the type to savor the flavor. Kaito scolds her for laughing, and the other members charge in to save their comrade. Filled with rage and the desire to save their friend, they let their powers loose and attack the enemy with full force. However, their weapons barely did anything as the main body remained firm and unharmed. Contamination oozed out of it as if healing the parts they just struck. The two scream in skeptical surprise, not knowing what was happening at all. The monster screeched, and the vice captain was the first to realize that they were up against the new type of carrier. Meanwhile, Rina dashed forward with her blade. Moving through the countless appendages on the ground, she sliced everything into pieces, cutting through them with ease. Kaito is surprised and confused to see that the damage wasn't nullified. Tia explains that it was, but the glowing energy around her weapon is at an incredibly dense level, so much so that the nullification can't keep up. With his captain working, Tora also starts to move. The main body is probably underground, so he lifted his axe high, imbuing it with special immunity, and swung down with all his strength. Dark energy emanated from the spot he bore through. His power began to rage, and finally, the true enemy started showing itself. A vine shot out, targeting the young man who was still vulnerable from carrying Yaji. Fortunately, he reacts in time and is able to run away. The vine moves after him, chasing his back like a homing projectile. As such, Kaito puts the girl down for now and turns around to retaliate. He grabs the appendage tight and pulls to drag the enemy out. Using all the strength in his body, he gritted his teeth as he tugged. Soon enough, he succeeds and forces the enemy out. Tia smiles, saying it's probably the first time that it's ever shown up in the human world. It was humanoid, but monstrous nonetheless, with several flytraps sprouting out of its body. The power of the virus seeped out of the never-before-seen mid-tier carrier. Terrified, they check its contamination level and freeze in fear as the radars register a level above 3,000. It's unthinkable for so much power to exist in one body. So Kaida wonders if he has to reveal his power as well. They call to Rina, reminding her that Sumu was still inside. With a determined gaze and intense focus, she prepares herself and dashes in with unbelievable speed. Tia then explains the biggest difference between low and mid-tier carriers. The sheer strength is surely part of it, but mid-tiers have intelligence. As the captain was about to strike, Suma's face sprouted from the enemy's body, his eyes nearly popping out as he cried out to him. Rina's focus completely crashes as she sees her subordinate's condition. Tora calls out, scolding her for losing focus, but it's too late as the enemy was already in motion to strike. She was still frozen, so the vice captain pushed her to safety, sacrificing his body in her place. One hit sends him flying and crashing to a tree, and the old man is immediately taken out of commission. A cold chill hits the usually calm captain, but she's given no time to recover as the carrier attacks again. She does her best to fight back, swinging and slashing, but Sum's sunken face, which continuously pleaded for help, made her resolve waver. On the other hand, Saya lets his anger take over, and he attacks with his jewel blades. With the immunity nullified, it barely scratches the carrier's thick vines and only serves to anger it so. It turns and strikes back, making one of the fly traps bite the purifier's body. Seeing his teammate in trouble, Natsu rushed to his side, wanting to check his condition immediately. Keeled over, he grimaced and writhed in agony as the virus spread throughout his body. His comrade came close, too close. Saya had completely turned into a feeder and bites Natsu to spread the infection. In that instant, two more members fell to the carrier. Yaji stared silently, and her two friends stared back, now with eyes devoid of humanity. She refused to believe what was happening and slowly walked toward them, desperately hoping that they were still okay. Kaito tries to stop her, saying it was already too late for them. However, the vine stopped him from moving any closer, and the poor purifier unfortunately shares in her friend's fate. Rina was still fending off the endless attacks on top of the mental toll struck by Tsuma's pleading. Her limbs were moving instinctively, but her eyes and heart weren't in it anymore. To make matters worse, the rest of her subordinates approached from behind. Yaji, Natsu, and Seiya pounced, rabid and inhumane after the virus completely took over. Seeing them, she couldn't help but remember their joyous times together. She fell apart, no longer able to hold her tears, and closed her eyes as if accepting their end. The impact came, but she remained unharmed. Around her was Kato's infected body, shielding her from harm. Since he's the one they really want to eat, he'll gladly be their opponent. He protects the captain, not just from the carrier, but also from his feeder comrades. With a loud war cry, Kaito swings his monstrous scythe, sending the feeders flying away from the captain. He asks Serena if she can move, but the first-class purifier was frozen. Hopelessness and grief had already pierced her heart. Excusing himself, he carries her by the shoulder and runs to safety. Arriving beside Tora, he places her by the vice-captain and asks her to give him medical attention instead. He ran back to the fight and the detector on her wrist beat, indicating a contamination level of 2000. With this, she confirms that he's a carrier. Kaito rushed forward asking why he's still okay despite getting bitten. Fortunately, with Tia there, such weak viruses aren't a problem. Natsu comes first, throwing his fist as if it's second nature. He dodges with ease and throws a punch of his own to drop the comrade. The two others follow, but a quick swipe with the back of his scythe is enough to send them back. The carrier asks why he isn't killing them, but it's easier said than done for him. Now it's the middle tier's turn to attack, so he spins his weapon around to defend. Following up, he swings to cut several vines down, but the ends just bubbled and regenerated. They attacked once more and the battle grew fiercer by the second. Frustration started to take over, so Kaito charged in aggressively. Now spinning its vines to create sharp ends, the carrier launched a new attack. The young man dodged carefully, but the vines shot strongly enough to drive themselves into the ground. He follows through and cuts them apart, but several others follow, and it's as if the barrage of spikes is unending. He starts using his limbs on top of the weapon, now used to the pattern and speed of the enemy. Managing to get close, he cuts the carrier's body. But when he's about to deal the finishing blow, Natsu suddenly lunges at him from behind, pushing him to the ground. Leaving the carrier for now, they roll around, and Kaito swats the infected member around. Still taking care not to kill him, he materializes a staple-like tool and pins the young man to a tree. The two others come as well, screeching loudly and thoughtlessly. Moving fast, he does the same too and prevents any further movements for now. They screamed and struggled, unable to free their bodies from the constraints. Tia is impressed that his tools maintain their form even when detached from his body. Moreover, he can even use multiple at once as expected from her capable host. That said, she still doesn't understand why he's limiting himself to restraints. There's no point in doing that to a feeder who has already gone past the point of return. He's well aware of this, of course. She persists, saying he isn't making any sense and that the end will come sooner or later. Losing his calm, he raises his voice, saying he already knows. Tia chuckles, not understanding humans and their emotions. Now able to focus on the enemy, Kaito ran forward again. However, the carrier smiled slyly, having a plan to fight him. Two vines shot out, but instead of going for him, they headed straight into Natsu and Seida's chest. They were pulled out from the restraints and lifted into the air. He wonders if they were being saved, but that's far from reality. A horrific sight unfolds as their bodies suddenly shrink and shrivel up, drained completely through the appendages in their chest. In other words, they're meals to the carrier who is now overflowing with power. Humans think feeders are companions, but this idea is not even close. Carriers attack humans to replenish their virus. Lower class ones are dumb, so they skip the infection and just eat them, failing to replenish anything. After all, the virus can only multiply inside living things. This means that the feeders or myo who was infected to a carrier are highly nutritious meals packed with viruses. Moreover, feeders attack other humans, creating more feeders and further spreading the virus. It's an efficient system where the food just multiplies on its own. Kaito was furious, finding it ridiculous that she considers the system amazing. Tia questions why he's so angry when humans improve food production as well. He shuts her up while Natsu's lifeless and sunken body drops to the floor. In tears, Rina can only look on in horror as she loses her subordinates one by one. It's a pitiful sight, but they can't spend time grieving since the meal just made the enemy even stronger. Kaido tries closing the gap like earlier, but the attacks have gotten faster and stronger. What's more, the monster's regeneration has also sped up. He tries to get the upper hand, but his scythe is too big to outmaneuver the vines. Realizing that he can't handle it all with such a weapon, he thinks back to other options. Too lost in thought, he fails to react fast enough to a bunch of vines that shoot up from the ground. Fortunately, the damage isn't too bad, and he manages to back away, but the attacks just keep on coming. Finally, they make contact, crashing into the ground. After a while, the dust settles, and Kaido is panting in exhaustion. The vines have fallen, cut apart from the main body. Meanwhile, Kaido emerged with a new set of weapons, now wielding razor-sharp dual blades. Overflowing with resolve, he refuses to be consumed so easily. With his new dual blades, Kaido stood his ground as the vines sped to him. With extreme focus, he predicted where each one would land and cut them all down in an instant. While his intense eyes were glared, the carrier screamed in agony and frustration. It unleashed countless more vines, which the purifier easily outmaneuvered. Unlike before, the gap was closed just like that, and he rendered the enemy completely helpless. Its body was cut into pieces and tossed aside to clear the way. He was about to deal the final blow, but several more appendages wrapped around his blades, interrupting his motion. They're coming from the regenerating limbs, but Kaido just lets the enemy take his weapons. However, it doesn't matter as they just dematerialize and reappear right back in his palms. Taking the carrier by surprise, he's able to slash directly at Tsum's face. With his mask destroyed, the monster was thrown into a fit of rage and lashed around him. The young man is able to back away in time, and after the attack, the carrier's true face is revealed. He clicks his tongue at the hideous sight. The enemy has let go of all pretense, and its eyes twitched rapidly. Just then, Yaji reacted, screeching while she was still locked to the tree. On the other hand, Rina had her back turned, busy while attending to Tora. It takes advantage of the situation and goes after the vulnerable targets. Kaido realized what was happening and quickly rushed to cut through the speeding vine. He saves the captain, but gets hit by the next vine, which was aimed straight for his infected comrade. Desperate to save her, he throws his blade, which barely makes it in time to stop the vine. He sighs in relief, but another sprouted from the ground beneath him. While it came unexpectedly, he manages to raise his arm and defend and avoids any serious injury. However, the carrier's attacks were unending, and so was its regeneration. It's been a while since they started, and the exhaustion was finally starting to set in. Tia asks if he's stupid, noting how he's protecting dead weight when he already lacks a finishing blow. He tells her to shut up, but she just shrugs it off with a smile. It's the first time he's seen a carrier like the one before him. He wonders if its plant-like appearance means it's drawing nutrients from the ground. However, carriers don't do that, and this one has miasma stones scattered in its body, allowing it to regenerate endlessly. The only way to defeat it is to crush all parts at once, even those buried underground. Another option is to exhaust its regeneration limits. Either way, it's too much for him right now, and it was far too early to fight a middle-tier carrier. The best thing to do is ditch the dead weight and save himself. Asked if he's planning to die fighting, he says he has no such intention. That said, it's exactly what's going to happen if things continue this way. Unwilling to leave his sister alone, he tells Tia to eat him again. It's the second time today, so she flatly refuses as it would cause too much strain on his body. If it's for Mio, he's willing to team up with a carrier and can even kill someone who used to be a human. Even so, abandoning his comrades and running away will never be an option. Tia can't help but get annoyed at her host who just refuses to listen. In the end, she decides to grant his request. Quickly wrapping herself around him, she says she's going to make it hurt since he's being difficult. She sinks her teeth into his body, taking a bit more than usual this time. The virus rapidly spread throughout his body. While the carrier just looked on in confusion, he screamed and convulsed. The changes were immediate, and power quickly wrapped around him. Now that weak mid-tier won't stand a chance, and all he has to do is crush it completely. Brimming with the virus energy, Kaido moved. Dashing forward, he was as fast as the speed of light. Meanwhile, Rina looked on in shock as the host roared with his newfound strength. He wielded his blades with deadly precision and speed, cutting the enemy into bits and pieces. Unlike before, it had no chance to regenerate and can only cry out in agony. Knowing he was about to lose, the carrier dove through the ground, desperate to get away. Kaido looked at its pitiful body, which had now lost all its confidence and was pathetically crawling in the dirt. However, he has no intention of letting the monster get away. He drives his blade into the earth and causes spikes of energy to erupt from deep within. It hits the carrier and lifts it back to the surface. Tia smiled at amusement, knowing they had already won, when she saw the wound on its body. The enemy tries to regenerate, but its limbs just bubble in smoke, no longer able to regrow anything. Its efforts are useless as a middle-tier carrier stands no chance against the higher carrier. As Kaido approached silently, the monster trembled in fear. He pushed his hand out, saying the miasma stones were concentrating into one spot. Tia was saying something, but stopped herself in surprise, realizing that he can sense miasma stones now. Still suspended, it makes a last-ditch effort and puts on Tsuma's face again, asking for forgiveness and mercy. This makes Kaido falter, and he momentarily lowered his hand in hesitation. Sensing his weakness, Tia says it's just mimicking the human it absorbed and that the owner of the face was long gone. Rage bubbled up in his body, reminded of the atrocities it committed against them. It continued to desecrate his members, so he drove his hand into its chest and clawed the miasma stone out. With this, the carrier bubbled and fizzled into nothingness. Kaido was still filled with rage, and he gritted his teeth while holding the stone, barely controlling himself. Fortunately, he manages to calm down, realizing what was happening. On the other hand, Tia smiled at amusement, saying he must have understood by now that he's becoming more and more like a carrier. While looking at the light blue miasma stone in his palm, Kaido's vision suddenly began to blur and get hazy. Exhausted and overstrained, he fell back, the virus transformation getting undone. As the cold wind blew on his weakened body, Rina appeared, her sword in hand. Internal turmoil bubbled inside as she thought about his actions as a carrier host. With his limp body, now was the perfect time to act. Fortunately, Tora called to her asking for help as Yaji's restraints were about to give out. He knew what he just stopped her from doing. But as she came to help, the red smoke started to return to Kaido's body. He stood up with a dark aura and in an instant was behind Rina to attack. Not expecting it, the attack hits and causes a massive explosion of power. She's blown away, leaving a huge fissure on the ground. He speaks, saying he thought he finished the job, but the first-class purifier was able to defend herself. Hearing the voice, she asks if he's really the sixth class they know. Kaido's appearance is fully unveiled, and the transformation progress has gone much farther, encasing his entire body in dark red aura. Tia says her host seemed tired, so she took over without permission. Although still in disbelief, Rina slowly realized what she was, and the carrier confidently confirmed what she was. The purifier overflowed with anger, which only affirms that it's the right decision to attack her. Unlike Taino, who is accepting, the woman before them has eyes, seething with pure hatred for carriers. She questions what she intends to do to Kaido, who she's parasitizing. However, it's more of coexistence, where Tia suppresses the infection and gives him the power to fight. In return, she gets a little taste. Rina argues that coexistence is impossible, but she couldn't care less what the purist thinks. With that said, her strength and unbending beliefs will end up being a problem for them. A huge blade emerges from Kaido's arm, and while the carrier isn't at full power yet, it won't be too hard to get rid of the wrist right there. The sheer aura sends them back, and Tora says it's too much for a sick joke. He's told to take care of Yaji for now, while the captain holds him back. However, dread fills her face as she sees the detector on her wrist, showing a contamination level nearing 6,000, which is twice as high as the plant monster earlier. Unable to overlook this any longer, she draws her sword, saying she's glad their identity as a carrier was revealed. Now she can purify her without any reservations. Their blades clash, illuminating the dark forest with flashes of crimson and golden light. While the battle raged on, Kaido opened his eyes. He was trapped in his own mind, and in front of him was transmission, showing the intense fight happening in the real world. Seeing the captain's face, he gets an idea of who she's against. Meanwhile, Tia appears, noting that he's finally awake and sharing that she's just borrowing his body for a bit. To his shock and confusion, she reveals her intention of ending the woman's life right then and there. Can't be helped as she came at them with killing intent. And since it's more than he can handle, she'll take care of it. The host struggles against his restrictions, shouting and ordering her to stop. However, there's nothing he can do as she disappears with a devious smile. While they screamed, the battle in the forest peaked. The captain was putting up quite the fight. For someone who was bawling just moments ago, Rina strikes, saying she doesn't need the praise of a carrier. Tita chuckles as she catches the sword bare-handed, saying she wouldn't consider her statement praise. Gripping tight, she counters and swings, but the purifier readily frees herself by letting the hilt go. She spins to dodge and returns a sharp kick aimed at the carrier's head. It misses, but the unexpected move was actually aimed at the weapon, which was now released from the enemy's hand. Rina leaped in to catch it midair and with unrivaled flow, severed her opponent's arm right off. Pivoting on the ground, she swings again to deal the final blow. Unfortunately, she was no longer against a human, but a carrier who could quickly regenerate their limbs. The arm reattached and blocked her blade, turning into an impenetrable shield in that instant. With a smug smile, Tia says she just hardened it a little, but the purifier's faces fell, reminded of the massive gap between them. Her weapon was deflected, and her arms were up in the air, clenching Kato's fist. The carrier warned that she was going to hit harder now. The captain tries to defend, but the sheer force sends her flying far back. Crashing into a tree, she falls to her knees, exhausted and injured from the fight. Just then, a pendant on her neck broke, revealing a photo of her and her father. She remembers their memories together. Watching this, Kaito also remembered his parent and how he wanted to grow up to be like him. While it was embarrassing to hear being his child's role model made him very proud as a father, unfortunately, the cruelty of fate struck years later as carriers ravaged their village. The young man was told to run away with Meo while his father held a monster off to buy them time. Looking back at his children, the father smiled with brilliant eyes, saying he's counting on Kaito. These were his final words as he dragged the carrier off a cliff and onto the burning forest below. His children could do nothing but scream and cry for him. A piercing noise came as Rina closed her eyes, having accepted her impending death. However, no impact came, and she turned to see the enemy's blade driven deep into the tree after its arm pushed the weapon away. Kaito had regained control just in time and scolds Tia for acting on her own. The carrier's surprise quickly turns into amusement upon seeing that he managed to forcibly wake up. The purifier in front of him stands in the way of his goal. Just like when he protected his sister, he can get rid of all the obstacles with ease. He screams at her, saying the captain isn't like go die. With a cold tone, she says she's still a human, throwing his words back at him as he previously said that a carrier will always be a carrier regardless. Besides, he's changed a ton and was already more like them, refusing to accept it. His body began to fall from fatigue once more. Before losing consciousness, he warns the carrier against killing his comrades, saying he'll never forgive her for it. With this, he passes out and falls into his captain's arms. Tia speaks, informing Rina that even if she kills Kaito, she won't disappear and will just be stronger with her restrictions lifted. Moreover, it's a fact that Kaito saved their lives, and she'd like to believe that humans aren't shameful enough to repay kindness with betrayal. Recalling her host's words about them being comrades, Tia looks at Yaji, who is still infected. A bolt of energy strikes her body. The captain assumes the worst, but the carrier explains that she just infected her with a bit of virus, so she should be tamed for a while. With all that settled, the carrier considers their matter settled and disappears into her host. The ordeal of a mission ends with more than half the team becoming casualties. The captain grimaces, now grieving over her fallen subordinates. While the forest calm had returned, the rage inside her could not be quelled. After some time, Kaito opened his eyes and found himself lying on an unfamiliar bed. He bolts up in an instant after hearing Rina's voice. In her casual clothes, she says they're in her apartment. The young man calms down, but it doesn't last long as he suddenly finds Taino and Tora in front of them. He notes the two men who had vastly different expressions. The first-class purifier lightly asks how he is, saying he was asleep for an entire day. Saying he's okay, he confirms that there's no need to worry about what they reported to the association. For now, only the three others there are aware of his secret. On the other hand, the vice-captain was less welcoming and says he spent the entire night cleaning their mess. Beyond exhausted, he kills his cigarette, intending to go straight into the interrogation. After a quick briefing, they confirm the existence of mid-tier carriers as well as higher ones. With a hateful glare, Rina questions why he teamed up with such despicable beings. Taino tells her to be careful with her wording. Feeling that they're closer now, he calls Kaito casually and says he worked with Tia to save his sister and should not be treated like he betrayed humanity. Feeling bad, the captain bashfully says that it was not her intention. Meanwhile, Tora tells them both to calm down, sets the conversation back on its path. He says it's about time that the higher tier carrier is finally introduced to them. Although reluctant, Kaido calls to Tia, who then materializes and sits beside her host. Rina is immediately on guard, ready for a fight. She's told not to be so tense as there should no longer be hard feelings. The vice captain agrees, reminding his superior of their agreement to suspend hostility. She controls herself once more. To start off, Tora surprisingly thanks Tia for helping them move Yaji. Kaido asks what's going to happen to her now. The comrade is being quarantined in a medical facility and was officially reported to have died in duty. If they hand her over to HQ, they'll definitely turn her into a lab rat. However, that won't be necessary as they can extract information regardless, getting an idea of what they want. Tia says she can't cure feeders and can only suppress the symptoms before ending in death. Rina reasons that she can do what she did to Kato as they were infected in the same way. That said, he's unlike the rest as she's actively trying to keep him alive as her host. Reality hits the captain. Meanwhile, Tainov says he wants more information about that. He asks about the gold carriers and if it's something like invasion. Why are they attacking the world? She says it's obvious, but as she was about to explain, a dark and intense energy surge. Shocked, Tia froze, and a cold bead of sweat ran down her face. Regaining her composure, she says they finally arrive. An upper tier entered their dimension complaining about the hassle of it all. He questions why Tia wasn't reporting back and says she isn't taking her role as the fifth seriously. Famished, he salivated and looked down at the countless humans below. With about 1 million people there, Crank, ranking fourth among the higher carriers, considered having a snack.
Alright, that's the end of the story. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.